Some reptiles are so controversial that people don't even want you to talk about them. And today, well, we're going to talk about them. Now, to get this started, what I mean by controversial reptile is something that people will get mad if you talk about. There's some people are on one side or the other, it causes heated debate, or there's some sort of controversy about that species, that group, or that morph perhaps. So let's just get into it with number 5. Spider ball pythons. Yeah, you know I had to say it, so let's just get it out of the way. Last year was kind of the big debate about it. It's been going on for years, don't get me wrong, but then last year, guys like Brian Barchuk and Go Herping and basically anyone who has a YouTube channel got involved, and I didn't, because I don't really have a strong opinion of it. Just to clear this up, spider ball python is a morph that is beautiful, but it is a mutation that causes neurological conditions, always. Now, I used to think this was sometimes, so I was always on the side of the fence. Well, I mean, you can breed it out. But the more I learned about it, the more I realized that that spider wobble, that neurological condition, that mutation causes the ball python cannot be bred out. It'll always be there. Now, I do have a spider ball python. I've got one. This is Peter. He's a spider orange dream ball python. Now, I don't plan to breed him now that I know that you can't breed it out of him. Now, the reason that I was considering it before is because he doesn't show a wobble at all. Zero. Not even a little bit. But just because he doesn't mean that his offspring won't. And sometimes ball pythons that have the spider genetic, that have that morph, that have that mutation, they are so messed up that they are upside down, they corkscrew, they basically bite themselves when they try to feed. They don't act like normal pythons, and a lot of people, and maybe myself included, think that this probably isn't giving the best quality of life to these animals, and they're really just suffering, and that's not what we're here for. Now, with that said, I don't dislike you if you breed ball pythons with the spider genetic. I don't agree with it, but I think that it's up to you. There's no laws against it. And I guess to a certain extent, where are we going to draw the line, right? Like, there are certain ones that people, even the Brian Barchuks of the world, won't breed, like enigmas. And we should bring that into this subject too, in number 5. Just neurological conditions in general. Enigmas for leopard geckos, and then sometimes jaguar carpet pythons. I don't know too much about this, but I had a conversation at the last expo. So number 5 is neurological conditions, or spider ball pythons. Now, number 4 is one that could probably be higher in the list, but not a lot of people are talking about it. Silkies, or silkback bearded dragons. Now, what the heck is that? Leatherback bearded dragons, this is where you're going to have to understand first, is a mutation where a bearded dragon has smaller and not enough scales. So they have this smooth type of leathery type of complexion, so it's missing some scales and they're smaller. They don't really have shedding problems, they don't really need extra care, they just look really cool. But when you put 2 leatherbacks together, you get a silkie. Silkies don't have scales at all. They look weird, they act a little bit different, and I do totally agree that this probably isn't good for them because they've got shedding issues like crazy. This is kind of one of those things like a spider ball python where even if it doesn't show it, it will have some sort of neurological condition. Same thing with silkies. They shed a lot, they almost always have problems, and they need extra care, and sometimes this leads to things like skin conditions, skin issues, where it just doesn't shed properly and it might be suffering the animal. Now, the allure is that they look cool and they feel cool. I've held the silkie. I didn't buy it, of course. They're expensive and they're really easy to breed because leatherbacks are pretty inexpensive. Breeding bearded dragons are pretty easy and you could just make them all day long, but they cause so much extra problems for the keeper and for the animal, of course. So, I mean, this far, if you liked the video, hit subscribe. I'd appreciate it. And I want to hear your opinion on this because this is a controversial thing. In the comments below, do you agree with spider ball pythons? Is it something we should try to just not breed at all and get rid of? Now, number 3 is a group of reptiles, and this is venomous reptiles. Now, obviously, venomous reptiles should exist, and some people should have them for research, for making antivenoms, and of course, different types of drugs that you use the venom from a snake for, but should a regular person be able to keep them? Now, obviously, this is very heated because I do videos about these and I get roasted that I should even be talking about them because I'm glorifying venomous reptiles, but also some places have laws and some places don't. If I wanted to go out tomorrow and buy a monocle cobra and stick it in a tub, a 20-gallon enclosure, my basement, sleep with it in my bed, there is no law against that. Now, all these things are probably not right, and I am not the type of person that wants to keep venomous reptiles. Not my skill level, I'm not there yet, I probably never will be, and the risk to me is just too great, because one mistake, and these videos get some good hits, but not as many as your obituary will get if you get tagged by something like a monocle cobra and you live a far way from the hospital. Not only that, but if you live somewhere like in the United States, I live in Canada, I have free healthcare. If I get tagged by one, I'll probably have to wait until I die of old age in the emergency room because it takes so long to see a doctor, but it's not going to cost me anything. So there's an extra cost with these guys. If you don't keep anti-venom around or you don't have it accessible to you, you might die, and even if you don't, man, that's like hundreds of thousands of dollars for a vet bill just because you got bit by something that you use to get likes on Instagram or whatever it is. Now, I don't want to downplay venomous reptiles, especially snakes, because without them, we wouldn't have treatments for serious diseases. The people who work with these things and try to better our lives through the research, those guys, in my opinion, are freaking heroes. I've got nothing against that whatsoever. But Joe Blow, who wants to get likes on Instagram, it's like, come on, dude, like, what are you doing? I think that if you want to do it, it's your life. Everyone should be able to do what they want, but I would advise against just somebody getting one because you think it's cool. Probably, I mean, it's a good way to lose your finger. And I'll just add this so I don't get roasted too hard. There are people who are trained professionals who do have these things for YouTube channels and stuff like that. People always bring up Chandler's Wildlife. I have no problem with this. If you're a trained professional, it is what it is. I'm just talking about these guys who think it's cool, they have no training, and they don't really know what to do if they get bit. And okay. Alright. Number 2, hybrid reptiles. I don't even like that this is on the list, to be honest, because in most cases, there's no issues whatsoever with the health of these animals. At all. Now, I did a whole video up here that you can watch about hybrid reptiles. It's one of my favorite videos I ever did, just kind of talking about things like carpondros and bat eaters and the boas that are mixed with anacondas, boacondas or anaboas, whatever you want to call them. They're really cool animals, and some of them look absolutely amazing. But generally, what people don't like about them is you're playing God. Okay, well, I'm not religious, so that doesn't really affect me at all. And some people will say, well, number 2, you don't know the exact specifications and how to take care of these things because there's no care guides online. Guess what, dude? At one point, there was never care guides online, and now we've got to this point where tons and tons, millions and millions of reptiles are kept because people did the research. And if you know a base, like a starting point, like an anaconda and a boa constrictor, like a BCC or BCI, they're not the same, but they've got similar enough components to them that you kind of know how to take care of them, and maybe your hotspot will be off by a couple of degrees, but I don't think this is a super big thing. If you're, 2 totally different species, that's different, but most of these animals that you can crossbreed or make hybrids out of are animals that have sort of similar care requirements anyway. I just don't see the issue. And number 3, and to me, maybe the funniest thing, you're muddying the waters. Because people will breed these things as if they're purebred, whatever the species is, ball pythons or blood pythons, and then now you're going to have this muddied water mixing of... Okay, I get this if you want to breed leopard geckos and you don't want to mix, rainwater or Vegas or whatever you call it with bells and trempers. That makes sense because you can't see them. But I promise you that if you breed a reticulated python and a Burmese python, you're probably going to be able to tell that it's not one or the other. I mean, I've never seen an example where it looks so muddied that you wouldn't know. So I think this is kind of silly too. It's up to you. I mean, if you don't want to do it, that's cool, and I agree that you shouldn't do it then. But if you are so strongly opposed to the idea of hybrid reptiles, like, I don't know, I don't play on that team, dude. I think that hybrid reptiles are very cool. I think that also, the other thing too is, you can't really rebreed them because most of them are sterile. Most of them are not fertile. So even if the whole muddying the waters thing, that's something that I really should have just put out there to begin with. You can't breed these things anyway. So if you buy one, you can't breed it. So most of the time. And I guess for the why you should or why it might be good to do, the best example, I think, blood python and ball python, or super balls, blood balls, whatever you want to call them. Because blood pythons are beautiful. They're amazing. I love the way these snakes look. I don't like getting bit by big snakes or medium-sized snakes. And blood pythons are pretty feisty. So, if you breed a ball python with a blood python, of course you can get the blood python attitude, but you might get something that looks like a blood python, or at least has a lot of those traits, and has the personality and the docileness, if that's a word, of the ball python. So you get, the way a blood python looks, and you get the way a ball python acts, and who the heck would not want that snake? Number 1, and the one that is most fiercely debated, in my opinion, besides ball pythons that have the spider genetic that we went through, scaleless snakes. Now, I guess I could have lumped this in with leatherbacks, but scaleless snakes are a different animal. Literally and obviously. But the reason that I put them separately is because this is not super new, but some things like the ball python, which is the scaleless ball python, that's pretty new. And you see a bunch of corn snakes, but now these things are affordable, where before they really weren't. Corn snakes, even 5 years ago in my area, $2,000 if you're lucky, and now I see them for 500 bucks. So basically anybody can go out and buy them. But the big difference between leatherbacks and scaleless snakes is they don't really need a ton of care. Now I know some of you are vigorously typing at your keyboards, yes they do. You know what? The research has decided that no, they really don't need extra care. They usually shed just fine. They don't have a scale, right? Which is why they're called scaleless. They've got this like keratin layer of skin rather than a dermal layer of skin, which is the difference. They don't shed any more frequently most of the time. Now these are generalities. I'm sure that some species, some expert on YouTube is going to tell me otherwise, but in general, they shed basically the same. Some people will say that UVB may hurt them a little bit more. They might be more sensitive to it. I don't know if that's the case. And that's another thing with the silkback bearded dragon that I forgot to mention. Some people say that UVB may hurt them, which is really bad because they actually need it to survive, where most snakes don't need UVB to survive. In general, I mean, like they're a mutation. It's just a regular mutation. They do have a ventral scale on their bellies, so they can move around. Their locomotion is not inhibited at all. Some people will say that their skin can rip a little bit more easily, and maybe that's true. I felt them. They feel very different. Scaleless snakes feel different than a regular snake, no doubt about it, but I don't think they feel more fragile at all. I think they move the same. I think that they're able to really live their life the exact same, and it doesn't affect them the way that they constrict. Now, if you feed them live prey, this could be an issue, because if they do have more sensitive skin or skin that's easier to rip, then obviously you shouldn't do that, but you really shouldn't be feeding live prey unless you need to anyway. So with this one, I mean, I'm unbiased. I mean, if you want to, great. If you don't want to, great also. I don't think there's an issue with scaleless snakes at all, and in fact, I would not be opposed to keeping a scaleless corn snake or something like that, because I think they look awesome, they feel cool, and they act pretty much like a regular snake. There you go. So I didn't really show a lot of B-roll, or I don't really own any of these snakes, but if you want to see some of the stuff I've got, bam, you can go ahead and check out the Instagram page. I'd appreciate it if you follow me there. I post a lot of breeding projects, and if you're looking to buy animals and I can ship them to you, I post them there mostly. And of course, I do videos that you guys suggest. Someone asked me to do this video, so in the comments section, what should I do next week? Hit subscribe. I think I already said that. Because I do videos twice a week, that means I'll see you.